Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Wednesday, March 6, 2024, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. The Department of Justice's investigation of a Mississippi Police Department found conduct so egregious that it demanded that the practice of constitutional violations cease. We'll tell you all about this. A young Alabama mother is brutalized before being shot in the head. We'll tell you about the horrific murder of Mahogany Jackson. Louisiana man has been in a Chinese prison for a decade. His parents will join us tonight to explain how they have not gotten much help from the U.S. government to bring Nelson Well Jr. home. We'll also recap Super Tuesday's elections and discuss a new study regarding Trump's black support. Is it rising? They say no. Executive Director of Black PAC will be with us. Plus, President Joe Biden will deliver the State of the Union address on Thursday. I talked with a senior White House official today about what his message is going to be. Plus, Isaac Hayes III will join us to talk about the new round of funding for Fanbase. Folks, we're going to the next level. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the best, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
The Department of Justice issued demands to a Mississippi Police Department regarding them violating the constitutional rights of folks they have arrested. The DOJ found that the Lexington Police Department imprisoned people for outstanding fines without assessing whether they can afford to pay them. The DOJ said the practice must stop and the city must stop enforcing unlawful arrest warrants for people with outstanding fines. This announcement comes amid an ongoing Justice Department probe into alleged civil rights violations by police in Lexington, Mississippi. The investigation, which began in November, is focused on accusations of systemic police abuses in the majority black city of 1,800 people. I want to talk about this with my panel. Robert Portillo, he's the host of People, Passion, Politics, News and Talk 1380 WAOK out of Atlanta. Rebecca Carruthers, Vice President for Fair Election Center out of D.C. A. Scott Bolden, attorney here in D.C., former chair of the National Bar Association and D.C. Chamber of Commerce's Political Action Committee. Glad to have all three of you here. Scott, I want to start with you. We always talk elections matter. And I'm going to discuss this with Steve Benjamin later. Regarding Biden's State of the Union address, but we have a civil rights division in the DOJ that arguably is the most aggressive DOJ since Robert Kennedy was Attorney General. And again, the election of Biden-Harris is why we're having these types of investigations of police departments nationwide.
And then add the U.S. prison system or the penitentiary system to that list, and that Civil Rights Division under Kirsten gets even more aggressive and more successful. They're just going by police department and federal penitentiaries and state penitentiaries and state police departments one by one. There's so much work to be done in this space because it hasn't been done in the past that they're overwhelmed. But you're right, they are totally aggressive. And the reality is, why isn't the Biden administration, when you talk about shoring up your base during the election season, this is a talking point that we don't hear enough about, especially in the black community. This would be one of the lead issues for me as we talk about shoring up our base. I hope they start leading with this talking point because they've done incredible work in this space.
You know, Rebecca, this is an example of, frankly, going too far. And so, their whole deal was they want to create what has traditionally been the separation between DOJ and the White House. They want to say, hey, the decisions of the DOJ are legal decisions. They're not political decisions. But it's still Biden-Harris's DOJ. It's still their attorney general. And so they should be touting these things. We should be hearing these announcements coming from the podium from Karine Jean-Pierre or even John Kirby. We should be hearing these things on a regular basis because they are holding people accountable.
You know, the fact of being Black in America is both political and it also has legal implications. So if the Biden-Harris administration wants to reach out to Black people, they have to understand that by essence, our existence is political. So anytime you're doing things to protect Black people, in this case, those in Lexington, Mississippi, it has political implications. It's okay. We don't have to run from politics. And quite frankly, not saying that the DOJ should be politically motivated in determining whether or not to enforce the Constitution. But the Biden-Harris administration needs to make it known, hey, there are constitutional violations that are happening across this country. And as an administration, we're going to make sure that those who are being violated have recourse through justice. That's the point of justice.
And the bottom line, Robert, for all Americans, whether you are African-American, Latino, Asian-American, Native American, white, you hope that there is a Department of Justice that will step in and examine issues if a local department, if a local DA, if the state doesn't do it. And so what's happening in Lexington, Mississippi is necessary, and thank God for an aggressive civil rights division that actually cares about American citizens, even if they have been arrested or if there are warrants or if they're imprisoned.
Well, I also want people to remember what the Justice Department was just one administration ago, because we can't look at this in a vacuum. Remember when Jeff Sessions was Attorney General, that was not too long ago, he spent the assets of the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department to go after discrimination against white students in the form of diversity and affirmative action programs. That is what they spent the time and the efforts of civil rights attorneys in the Department of Justice to do, to investigate discrimination against white students. We have to look at what Bill Barr did as Attorney General and all the other acting attorneys general that President Trump had, whose main purpose were to help him steal the election and maintain power while going after his political adversaries. That is what a poor administration can do when they are given the immense power of the Justice Department. We're seeing the opposite of that now with Christian Clark, with Merrick Garland and the Biden Justice Department actually using these tools for the express purpose that they were meant to, which is to protect the civil rights of African Americans. And we should use this as a springboard to pass even stronger and more powerful legislation, giving them every tool they need so that when we have local jurisdictions that are unwilling to prosecute officers who violate the civil rights of individuals, give the Justice Department the tools they need to handle it at the federal level. And that's how we'll start tamping down on police violence and police brutality nationwide.
And again, let me remind everybody who's watching, the Trump Department of Justice, they were clear. They were not going to investigate police departments. They said it was hurting the morale of police officers. They wanted to pull back on consent decrees. So for all the people out there who are watching and listening, who are confused about what to do in this election, do understand a Trump Department of Justice would not be investigating these type of issues. They would not be investigating what's happening in local jails and state prisons or what's happening in federal prisons. In fact, last week, we've been having some issues getting the video, but last week, the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, Christian Clark, who leads it, they announced what was happening in Mississippi prisons. And they were talking about the horrible conditions that we're seeing there and talking about what they're doing to fix those. And so, Mississippi, of course, is the blackest state in the union. This is the press release right here from the Department of Justice. So we got to understand, when they're talking about these investigations, they're talking about a lot of people who look like us. And so they found conditions in 3 Mississippi prisons violate the Constitution. It was a 60-page report, violates the 8th and the 14th Amendments, and it's the Central Mississippi Correctional Facility, the South Mississippi Correctional Institution, and the Wilkinson County Correctional Facilities house more than 7,000 people. And what they said here, Scott, was people living in prisons and jails have a constitutional right to safe and adequate living conditions. This is Acting Assistant Attorney General Benjamin Miser. Our investigation uncovered that people in these 3 facilities were subjected to violent and unsafe conditions in violation of the Constitution. And so, again, another perfect example of what happens when you have a federal Department of Justice holding states accountable for how they treat Americans.
Yeah, especially if you're gonna punish somebody, that doesn't equate to inhumane treatment. These are still human beings, and so they've certainly been convicted of a crime, and they're going to prison. But our prisons, most of them are just cesspools of corruption and violence. I mean, whether it's violence or getting beat up or rape or what have you, it's almost like common culture on the outside that this is what happens when you go to prison. But Roland, on another note, when you talk about the White House and DOJ and the separation, here's an idea for the White House that they could take credit for, or not even take credit for, but get the word out at their press conferences or even in Biden's speech. I want to thank you. I want to thank DOJ. They're doing yeoman's work over there based on their press release. They did this and that with the prisons, the 3 prisons in Miami. They're cleaning up a police department. I want to compliment them on their stick-to-itiveness and their aggressive cleanup of our criminal justice system. That's all. Biden could say it. His press secretary could say that. And you're getting the word out and taking credit for it without violating some separation issue politically or perception-wise.
It is nonsensical to me, Rebecca, that we have talked more about the things the Civil Rights Division has done than any other media outlet in the country. Every time we see one of these press releases, and we run video of the announcements as well, and not just this, but also the targeting of redlining and housing discrimination. And I sit here, and I've actually emailed people in the White House saying, hey, are any of y'all paying attention? I mean, I've literally said, y'all talk about every damn thing else. How in the hell are you not talking about this here? In fact, go back to my iPad. This report follows the April 22 report on Parchman, Mississippi State Penitentiary, known as Parchman, where it says, quote, violated the constitutional rights of persons incarcerated there by subjecting them to violence, failing to provide adequate care for serious mental health needs, or adequate suicide prevention measures, and using prolonged restrictive housing in a manner that poses a risk of serious harm. I don't understand why Biden's top advisors are not making sure that he is mentioning this, or the press secretary. It's literally the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
The American public expects the president to have involvement with the Department of Justice. Is one of his agencies where he actually sets the appointments, and the Senate confirms. Like, this is his Justice Department. Just like I would expect USDA, I would expect it to push Biden's ag policies. It's okay. In fact, when I think about some of the activists in Mississippi, like Rukia Lumumba, who really was out front on the Parchman situation, I think they would want to know that this president is active, this president is listening, is hearing, listening to the activism on the ground, and is now responsive, using the agencies that he directs, who runs those agencies. Like, it's interconnected. In fact, this president should want people to say, hey, you may not like me, you may not like all of my policies, but guess what? This is what all of the agencies are doing on your behalf. So if you vote for me for a second term, these are all of the things that you're going to be getting in the second term and more. He has to draw that distinction between what a full Biden-Harris administration looks like versus a Trump and whoever he picks as his number 2 administration. He needs to draw that comparison, and the only way for him to do it is listen to plies. Take credit for the good stuff that you're doing, because otherwise no one's going to know that you're doing these things in your administration.
Go back to my iPad. Robert, look at this here. Former Alabama sheriff's deputy pleads guilty to federal civil rights offense for excessive force. That was on March 6th. Let me go down further. It says here, former Kentucky sheriff's deputy found guilty of federal civil rights charges following multiple assault and obstruction. That was March 5th, 2024. If I go to the next page right here, you see something about human trafficking. You see, let's go right here. Because that was, again, like I said, we talked about a lot of these things, but all of these are various things that the Department of Justice has been involved in. Most of the time, they're making these announcements from DOJ. It doesn't get lots of attention from the public, but people see this here, right? Justice Department informed City of Lexington, again, about the fines. We were just talking about that. If we go down here, right here, again, you see the Mississippi conditions right there that we just talked about. That was February 28th, that particular announcement. Former Alabama correctional sergeant sentenced for violating the civil rights of inmate by using excessive force and lying to cover it up. Then if you go down further, and again, folks, y'all out there, you can go to justice.gov and actually see these stories. And you're actually, these press releases showing you type of work. South Carolina man found guilty of hate crime for killing a transgender woman because of her gender identity. And look, we're just going to page 5 of the press releases right here. And you see how they're going after people for illegal tax returns. They're going after folks for any number of things. But again, there are a number of cases that we have talked about right here. Robert, Maryland correctional officer pleads guilty to conspiracy and destruction of records offenses related to cover-up of excessive force incident. I mean, your DOJ is doing the work. Folks voted for you to appoint an attorney general and the head of the Civil Rights Division to do these things, and you don't talk about it. That's nuts.
Well, Democrats do a very poor job of controlling the narrative, often because they just aren't as dedicated to pushing the same message day in and day out. Think about what the current national conversation is on the issues of race. We're not talking about police officers who are being arrested and convicted and sentenced to jail time for violating the civil rights of African Americans and other minorities in this country through excessive force, as demonstrated by the Department of Justice. The conversation on race and racism in this country is about the diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's about critical race theory. It's about what books are being banned and aren't being banned. Most of the stuff you just named, you can't even teach in Florida. That'd be against the law in that state. And so when you're talking about controlling the narrative, controlling the conversations around these things, we have to lead with this, and we have to also. And we're going to just say, and we're going to make the decision as a society and as a culture that entertainers will be leading the conversation on politics for the Black community. Let's make sure we're getting them the right facts and the right information. People are going to be taking their political advice from Waka Flocka Flame and Sexy Red and Whoa Vicky. Well, let's make sure that we're sitting them down with the Justice Department and the people who have been affected by many of these initiatives put forward by the Civil Rights Division, so that when they're going out there and repeating this information, they're repeating the correct information. Otherwise, we lose this argument to the intense MAGAs who are able to create their own version of reality to inhabit.
Indeed. All right, hold tight 1 second. We come back. Republicans want to defund the police. Yep. No lie. I'll show you next. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, I'm sure you've heard that saying that the only thing guaranteed is death and taxes. The truth is that the wealthy get wealthier by understanding tax strategy. And that's exactly the conversation that we're going to have on the next Get Wealthy, where you're going to learn wealth hacks that help you turn your wages into wealth.
Taxes is one of the largest expenses you ever have. You really got to know how to manage that thing and get that under control so that you can build wealth.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Farquhar, executive producer, Proud Family. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Republicans want to defund the police. Yep, no lie. They've been criticizing Democrats for the last several years for that, lying about that as well. But Speaker Mike Johnson, he literally said this today. Listen.
We have advanced, and we also advanced, as you've seen the summary, cuts to some of the agencies that we believe are really overreaching and have been turned in some ways against the American people. We're going to cut 3% from DOJ, 7% from the ATF, 6% from the FBI, and 10% from the EPA, and that's just a start. We have a lot more priorities and things that we need to advance, but the reality is, as we all recognize, is that we have to grow the House majority, take back the Senate for the Republican Party, and win the White House. And I'm here to tell you the reason we're optimistic is we believe those things are going to happen in November, and we can't wait that day.
Wow, ain't that interesting, Robert?
You know, the hypocrisy of the Republican Party really is galling at this point in time. It seems that they don't have any value that they're not willing to step directly over. They believe in small, limited government, but then when it was time for immigration deal, they say, well, you don't need to go through Congress. The president just has that power. He can do it intrinsically. They believe in lower taxes and lower spending. Donald Trump spends $8 trillion. You know, that's the price of doing business. I ain't really mean all that. They say, well, we're pro-life through and through. Then when it starts polling badly and they lose some elections, they say, well, when we say pro-life, we meant like a certain number of weeks, then it will count, or whatever will get us through this immediate moment. And this is just another example of this. We've heard years the rhetoric of Republicans saying that they supported law and order. Then the minute that Donald Trump got arrested, they decided that they were against the FBI, they were against the Department of Justice, they were against anybody who could investigate them. The entire legal system is completely corrupt. It needs to be destroyed from the inside out. It's very difficult to actually find out what the Republican Party stands for in 2024, except for whatever will get them out of the next sentence. As long as you're governing in that nature, it's very difficult to actually have a governing coalition.
See, here's what I find to be hilarious, Rebecca. And Robert, we know you love your guns. They've hated the ATF since the raid on Waco and David Koresh in 1992. They've despised the ATF. So now they're mad about the DOJ and the FBI because they're investigating Donald Trump, who chose to do illegal stuff. All right? We know they hate the Environmental Protection Agency, and so they're targeting the DOJ, the FBI, EPA, and the ATF. I mean, hell, go ahead and go for it all. Just go ahead and defund the Secret Service and the DEA while you're at it.
The IRS, the rest of them. Like, I always wonder, if you're going to defund all these other stuff, defund some of these college loans that people are paying back in, if you're going to do something. Here's the bottom line, is that once again, the Republican Party is showing that they're not serious with having true policy solutions to help the American people. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as much as he's saying this, you know what? I wish reporters will push back and say, okay, these are the things you want to defund. But by the way, let's talk about Project 2025 and the plans that Republicans are putting together with how they would unleash an attack against civil liberties in this country for the American people. So, like, while I hear what he's saying, I'm more concerned about the stuff that they're trying to do quietly. Because, quite frankly, there's a clear contrast between if you're going to have a Democratic-led House and Senate versus having a Republican-led House and Senate. And I think that Democrats should take advantage of these moments and actually show clear distinctions and start talking about, hey, this is what we'll do if you all vote to put us in charge in 2025.
And this also is one where, frankly, Scott, Democrats should be far more aggressive at hitting Republicans, showing their hypocrisy, and showing how fraudulent they really are.
Yeah, run that video of that press conference that you just ran and said Republicans want to defund the police, and just run it over and over again.
And while you're doing that, overlay that with a video of Donald Trump's folks beating the hell out of cops on January 6th.
Exactly. And you know, there's another agency they hate too, and that's DOE. So they got a lot of agencies that they hate, but services their constituents. But here's a research project, Roland. What about this? Name me one Republican-driven bill where the Republicans held hearings, worked with Democrats in a bipartisan way, and passed a piece of legislation that helped America, helped their red states and blue states. Can you name one?
Well, first of all, the House,
I can't name one.
The House has only moved about 30 bills. That includes renaming of post offices. So they frankly haven't done jack in the past year.
Right. And not only they party or no, but they do these investigations and they get on TV and they do all these other things. But if I'm a Republican elected congressman or woman, what am I doing? What's my job? I fundraise consistently for 2 years. I get on Fox News. I fight the president. I say no to everything. I play politics, right? But a substantive investigation or a substantive piece of legislation that is Republican-led and driven, that leads America, name one bill that does that, that's got the Republican lead on it. And I just can't name one.
I guess you've been kicking it with Texas Congressman Chip Roy, because this is what he said on the House floor.
The gentleman from California.
I'm sorry, California.
I would note that we've only really had now 2 people speak in opposition to the bill out of the 40 minutes it's been on the floor. And that's just the reality of what we deal with here. The fact of the matter is, all of this is a shell game. Last year, Republicans were presented with a bill that was supposed to cap spending at $1.59 trillion. Now we have legislation that will do no such thing. Republicans will go around and they'll talk about how they scored major wins, how they somehow delivered for the American people. The fact of the matter is, we did no such thing. We signed up for caps at $1.59 trillion. We could have had $1.56 trillion if we would have passed a CR this year that would have triggered the caps. Limit safe growth that we passed was $1.471 trillion, but we're not doing that. We're going to blow the lid off of caps at $1.66 trillion. That's what we're actually going to do. While my Republican colleagues are going to run around and say that they somehow delivered cuts by saying $24 billion in cuts off of a CR that not one member of this body could come down to the floor and explain. And I would take that challenge. If any member of the body can come down and explain to the American people in terms that they can understand, explain it, exactly what the cuts look like. Because what you'll get are things like, oh, we cut 7% out of the FBI. But what they won't tell you is 95% of that cut is eliminating an earmark from Richard Shelby, because Richard Shelby is no longer here to defend his pet project building back in Alabama. And they're going to say, oh, look, we're cutting the Department of Justice and the FBI. But the truth of the matter is, we didn't get any of the major wins that we worked all last year to get. All of these things, like defunding the sanctuary cities, refusing to report criminal aliens, gone. All of these measures are not in the bill. I rise in opposition to this legislation. I hope my Republican colleagues will oppose it. We deserve to deliver for the American people the way we said we would, to cut spending and secure the border of the United States.
Well, that's right there is an ad. We didn't do jack.
How you pour that up like that? That was good. That was good, because you didn't know what I was going to say at all.
This ain't my first rodeo. I've done this before, Scott.
That was good. I like that. Go right ahead. Go on with your baby. I'll leave you alone.
That's how we do it here. All right, that's how we do it. All right, gotta go to a break. We come back. A brother's been held in a Chinese prison for 10 years. What is the State Department doing to get him out? We'll talk with his family next. And also, North Carolina Republicans have nominated a crazy, deranged, sick, and demented black man as their nominee for governor. Wait till we show you videos of him saying, first of all, he's a Holocaust denier. He said the civil rights movement wasn't jack. And ladies, guess what? He said, y'all should not have the right to vote. Ooh, yeah, I got all of it. Let me go show you right here in Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Be sure to join our Black Star Network, Bring the Funk fan club. So you're checking money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Democracy in the United States is under siege. On this list of bad actors, it's easy to point out the Donald Trumps, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, or even the United States Supreme Court as the primary villains. But as David Pepper, author, scholar, and former politician himself says, there's another factor that trumps them all and resides much closer to many of our homes. His book is Laboratories of Autocracy, a wake-up call from behind the lines.
So these state houses get hijacked by the far right, then they gerrymander, they suppress the opposition, and that allows them to legislate in a way that doesn't reflect the people of that state.
David Pepper joins us on the next Black Table, here on the Black Star Network.
Grow your business or career with Grow with Google's wide range of online courses, digital training, and tools. Gain in-demand job skills with flexible online training programs designed to put you on the fast track to jobs in high-growth fields. No experience is necessary. Learn at your own pace. Complete the online certificate program on your own terms. Stand out to employers, get on a path to in-demand jobs, and connect with top employers who are currently hiring. Take one professional career certificate program or all 6. Earn a Google Career Certificate to prepare for a job in a high-growth field like data analytics, project management, UX design, cybersecurity, and more. All professional career certificate programs must be completed by December 31st, 2024. Scan the QR code to complete the application. There are 1,000 scholarships available. Grow with Google and J. Hood and Associates. Be job ready and qualify for in-demand jobs.
For the last 15 or maybe 16 years, 18 years, I'll say, since when I moved to LA, I hadn't had a break. I hadn't had a vacation, probably a week vacation here or there. Right. This year, after I got finished doing Queen Sugar and we wrapped it out, because I knew I had 2 TV shows coming on at the same time, I said, I'm gonna take a little break. So I've been on break for the first time, and I can afford it now, praise God. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I can afford it. I'm like, I can sit back and ain't got nothing to worry about, man. But this was the first time in almost in 2 decades that I've actually had time to sit back and smell the roses.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Deborah with Sammy Roman.
I'm Dr. Robin B., pharmacist and fitness coach, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Louisiana couple's son has spent the last 10 years in a prison in China trying to bring him home. Nelson Wells Jr. was arrested in China on drug charges. He was convicted and sentenced to death in 2014. That sentence was commuted to life in prison, which was then reduced to 22 years without the benefit of time served. His parents, Nelson Sr. and Cynthia Nelson, have depleted their life savings trying to bring their son home. They join me now in studio along with Joy Chaney. Glad to have all three of you here. So first, what was your son doing in China?
He went over there to try to get some medical help because he has been suffering with seizures. He was hit while leaving work, going home, and a guy came up the one-way street. He was on a moped, and he suffered severe injuries. He broke his leg, his arm, and the most significant thing was he hit his head, and he developed seizures from that. So upon his medical recommendation, they wanted to try to see if they can get some medication that can control these seizures. And his physician told him to go over there and talk to, some of the Chinese doctors over there that might have something that would be able to help him.
Now, when he got hit, that took place here or in China?
In Japan.
In Japan?
In Japan.
He got hit in Japan, and his doctors in Japan told him, try to go to China to see if there's some medication to help.
Right. Right. That's basically how it all started.
All right. So he goes to China, and then what happened?
Well, now this is where it gets tricky. While he's in China, we are only told by the Chinese government what happened. So while he's there, it doesn't work out for him. He's coming home. And in the process of coming home, there was an individual that I guess Nelson knew or possibly met. And they became associates or whatever the case may be. I haven't gotten his story as of yet. I was unable to get his story because he hasn't been able to tell me anything, because if he does, our phone calls will be disconnected. So we keep it generic.
Meaning Nelson?
Yes.
Okay. So you haven't talked to this friend?
No, we don't even know who he is.
Okay.
Never met him, don't know anything about him, nothing at all. Okay. So anyway, this particular friend had excessive baggage. And so what he did is he asked Nelson to help him get his baggage on board. And so Nelson said, okay, no problem. So in the process of that, they both go through the gates together, and when he goes through the gates, Nelson gets stopped, he goes through. The drugs was in his suitcase, but Nelson was the one that was bringing it through.
What were the drugs?
To this day, I'm not good on drugs, but the drug that I think it was meth.
Okay.
That's what I think it was.
Okay.
And it was a significant amount, and it was inside of baked goods, like pies and cakes and all of these things. And Nelson, the guy told Nelson that he wanted him, this was for his family, and he wanted to bring these gifts and everything along with other gifts that was in there. Nelson never looked in the suitcase.
So Nelson never looks in the suitcase,
Not at all.
Doesn't know any of this. Nelson gets stopped, his friend continues forward.
Continues forward. And when that happened, Nelson was like, what's the matter? What's going on? This portion we did get from him. And so it was kicks because the way it went down, Mr. Martin, is when he was over there, we didn't know that this had happened at all, period. And the only way that we were informed is a young man called us. It was like 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. And we was asleep, heavily in sleep. And when the phone rang, I said, Cynthia, I said, Red, the phone is ringing. The phone is ringing. So she answered it, and the young man says, is this the Wells? And I told them, he said, yeah. And she put it on speaker. And he said, I'm associate of Nelson. I know him. He's he's in trouble. He's been incarcerated. They want to kill him. Do you have money? And I was like, what? He said, hurry up. He needs help. Get him out. And he hung up. And so Cynthia and I, we thought it was a prank or a scam. And so we couldn't go back to sleep. Now, he resides in Japan, and his wife and his family and everybody's over there. So because we were so nervous about the phone call, we actually called his wife and asked, did Nelson go to China? And she said he did. And in the process of that, well, now we thinking, this might not be a prank. It might not be a scam. So at this point, we decide that let's look into this. So we called the embassy, the Chinese embassy, and we say, look, we believe that our son may be incarcerated.
Chinese embassy where?
In Beijing, I believe it was, we called it. Yeah, I think it was Beijing. And we asked them, we said, listen, we believe that our son has been detained. We need you all to find out and verify, is this true? So the embassy went to searching for him, and they called us back and said, well, we don't have him. We don't know anything about it. So a couple of weeks went by, and after all these weeks went by, we started saying, well, we haven't heard from him. He calls us all the time. He don't miss special occasions. And so our wedding anniversary go by, and we don't have no phone call from him. So it's like, okay, something is not right. So we inquired again, and still yet they don't have anything. So Cynthia, at this point, start using outside channels. We find him. And in the process of finding him, then we verify that this is true with Mr. John Cam, who's in San Francisco. He said he's not on my list, but he is there. So we then, in turn, forward this information to the embassy. The embassy goes find him. And as they find him, they come back and say, yeah, this is true. He's there. And we will do whatever we can to help y'all in this process. So at that point, Nelson is in the detention center. And I think 6 months go by, we are not in contact with him at all. So eventually, after about another 3 months, we finally get a phone call from Nelson, and he says, Mom, he says, Mom, Pop, I didn't do this. Help me. I'm in trouble. Get me out of here. And at that point, my whole life changed. So now this is a reality. This is no game. We have no political contacts. I don't know what I'm gonna do to help my child. I feel helpless, weak. You know, so we get back in touch with the embassy, and we ask them to give us all the support and assist. We ask them, well, is there some lawyers y'all can help us out with? And this is kind of hard for Mr. Martin, so bear with me. He says, you tell me, they said, no, we can't do anything like that. All we could do is give you a list, and y'all can go from there. So Cynthia and I, we go down that complete list, and the lawyers that we're speaking with, you know, their language is English is, you know, it's a barrier. So as we going back and forth, they say, well, send this, send that. We sent pretty much all our savings to lawyers. Some didn't do anything. Some just... Now,
lawyers there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Chinese.
So you're paying for lawyers there?
Correct.
All right. While this is happening, first of all, where are you in Louisiana?
We live right now in Houghton, Louisiana, which is in Bossier, Shreveport area.
Are you communicating with your member of Congress, your two United States senators, and what are you getting from them?
Well, to this day, it took us a long, hard road to get to them. We notified them about everything that had been going on, and it through hard work. And Ms. Dominique Ben, who's a reporter with KLSA, she took us an interview, and our word got out. So
now hold on. Before that, I take it you're calling, you're emailing, you're writing, and
no help.
Your members of Congress are not responding?
Nobody. We were out there on our own. It was like we were in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and nobody threw us a life raft. That's it. So we were out there with no experience, none of this stuff. But it didn't last that way forever. It only lasted like that for about, 8 years? And it's a long story, Mr. Martin.
It took 8 years for y'all to, to connect with them, for them to listen?
Yes.
$80,000.
Yes. So with that being said.
Say it again, you said how much?
Over $80,000.
I depleted my savings, $80,000. I'm a retired veteran and disabled vet, and I was living comfortably until this happened. I told you, my whole life changed.
So bring Joy in here. So Joy, you then, how do you come into this story?
So Mark Morial, I was working, and I've been on your show before, I was working for Mark, and Mark and Mr. Wells are lifelong friends. Mr. Wells had reached out to Mark. At the time I worked for him, he asked me to do some work on it, and then I continued working on it, and even after I left the Urban League, I took them on as pro bono clients, along with a man named Peter Humphrey, who he and his wife had been in a Chinese prison from Britain, and they were released, and so Peter has dedicated his life to helping other families not feel so alone and to navigate this quagmire. It's very difficult. So with him in London and me in the United States, here in Washington, D.C., and with so many friends that have come from that, including new friends, Angelo Greco, others, we have been making some traction.
Yes.
And when we say make some traction,
yeah,
how so?
Let me tell you about it. So this week we're in D.C. and we're meeting with our members of Congress. The Wells's congressman happens to be Mike Johnson, who is now Speaker.
Your member of Congress is the Speaker of the House.
Yes.
How fortuitous. And then, of course, our two senators from Louisiana, Senator Kennedy and Senator Cassidy. The attention from the press and others, and Ms. Dominique Benn certainly focused everyone's attention on this case. And with that, we were able to get responses. And now we have our senators, as well as others, including Troy Carter. Everyone is focused, and we are starting to get high-level conversations with the State Department, with others in the Chinese, in the People's Republic of China, and others to try to see what kinds of negotiations, what kinds of conversations can happen to help Nelson.
Have y'all actually sat and met with Speaker Johnson?
No, but what I can say is this.
Not in person, but.
But what I can say is this. Before Speaker Johnson became Speaker Johnson, he called me personally on the phone, and we had a 2.5 hour conversation. And in that conversation, he understood what I was asking for, and he promised me. He said, I will do everything in my power to assist you and your family in bringing your son home.
Have y'all had direct conversation with both United States senators?
We have. So today we met with Senator Cassidy in person in his office.
Is that the first time y'all met with him?
Yes.
It is the first time.
So in 10 years, this is the first time you met with one of your two United States senators?
Yes.
Yes, that's true.
This is true.
What about Kennedy?
Not in
person. Not in person.
But we have spoke with his staff.
No, have you talked to him?
No, sir.
Not Kennedy.
So in the decade, you haven't talked to Kennedy. You're here. Is his office setting up time for y'all to meet with him?
We're working on it. We've met with his staff. And, you know,
that's the staff. I'm talking about him.
We hope to meet with Senator Kennedy soon. But we did meet with Senator Cassidy. We've had long conversations with Speaker Johnson. And I know you might say, well, why am I not holding their feet to the fire?
No. I'm just putting it out because I want to understand all of the details.
Those are the details
here. And so
we have not met with Kennedy.
Gotcha. All right. So what are your conversations? Who are you dealing with at state?
We are working with the counselor. Counselor affairs. We don't give names, but we have been working with our State Department officials, with American Citizen Services, with the Office of Counselor Affairs in the State Department, and others. But I think the point is it has taken 10 years to get this type of traction. And for those out there wondering, what does this have to do with you? You could be traveling anywhere in the world, and if something happens to you, especially in a country where our diplomatic relations are not always the strongest, you could be out there on your own. There is not a lot of recourse for you, and we've had to make everything up on our own, generating our own press, generating our own interest. And it's not like someone immediately comes and says, here, I want to help. We have a website, nelsonwellsjr.com. I encourage you all to take a look at it. Hopefully you all will put it in the notes. And we, have a GoFundMe page and more about our story there. But it has taken 2 years of my dedicated work, Mark's dedicated work, but 10 years of this family's prayers and dedication to even get to the point we are at right now.
Well, the reason I was asking those questions because go to my iPad about 18 years ago, when Dallas Austin was arrested for a small amount of drugs in Dubai. They were going to throw him in prison for a very long time. And it was then Utah Senator Orrin Hatch, Quincy Jones, and Lionel Richie who were able to intervene. And so that's what I was trying to understand in terms of who have y'all been dealing with, communicating with, on this, and it's still. I'm glad you're having the conversations now, but it still is crazy to me that a decade goes and you're not here. You're not getting response from the people who are elected. And this is the thing that I'm always trying to explain to our audience. It doesn't matter if you voted Democratic and the member of Congress and the 2 United States Senators are Republicans. You are still constituents.
You're their constituents.
And they still are there to represent you and to speak for you. And so that is crazy. And so, go ahead.
And can I just say, Mr. Wells is a veteran. Many decades. Mrs. Wells is a veteran of the civil service working for DOD. These good Americans have served their country. You shouldn't even have to have all that to have your members respond to you. But certainly once you have done all that, your members ought to respond to you. And it took, what we haven't mentioned is that Nelson has been sick, over there. This has taken a tremendous toll on him, as you can imagine.
At any point in these 10 years, have y'all traveled there to see him?
Not yet.
If you do, are you allowed to see him?
Well, it's going to take a lot of negotiation for us to have the permission to go, but there have been other people that have been able to go, and it was brought up to our attention today if we would be interested in going.
Now, when you say other people, other cases or other people who've seen your son?
Other cases.
Got it. So you talk. How often do you talk to him on the phone?
Yeah.
Wow. When we first started this, we wasn't talking to Nelson at all. Period. After about first of all, I have to explain. Nelson was in the detention center, and that's one of the worst places to be while you're over in China. So once he was able to get out of the detention center, which he had to voluntarily say, in order to get out of there, to be able to, get the things that he needed.
He had to admit guilt?
He had to plead guilty, yeah.
Yes, sir. So he admitted the guilt. And in the process of admitting the guilt, now he's incorporated into the prison system. And while he's there, they are allowing him to make phone calls to us now.
How often?
It started off where we would get a phone call like once every 6 months.
And what is it now?
Now it's a lot better. We're getting calls. I would say he would get calls maybe once a month or once every 2 months.
And his wife and child, how many children does he have?
He has 3, 2 by his first wife and 1 by his second wife.
And his second wife and that child, they're still in Japan?
Yes, all of them are still in Japan.
Okay, all 3 kids are still in Japan?
Yes, sir.
What's next?
What's next is we're going to let these high-level conversations play out, and we're going to keep their feet to the fire. We have regular communication. Nelson is waiting to have them return home. He's saving up his time so he can call them next week. We look forward to updating you on some of those conversations. We've had some hopeful conversations this week. It made a difference to be in person.
Right.
And to have communications with people, but it is heartbreaking to think what it has required for us to get here.
Yes.
Our attention has meant that Nelson has got more frequent visits by American Citizen Services in Beijing. But let me tell you, if you're overseas and you get caught in this situation,
right,
you get to know a officer, Every year and a half, they change out. Very hard on prisoners. How many people have you all met over the years, ACS officers?
At least 8.
Maybe 10. Maybe 10.
When that happens, you have to almost start over.
Because it's every 6 months to a year. And Nelson's been there 10 years.
Yeah.
So we understand, and we're about to wrap up here.
Yeah.
So he was arrested in 2014.
Yes, sir.
When was the sentence reduced to 22 years?
2019.
And those 5 years, there was no time served.
No time served.
Yeah.
So from 2019, you got to add. So you're talking about
he'll be released
2042,
2041. He'll be released in 2041.
He'll be almost 70 years old at that point, which that is, and for someone who's been ill, that is not likely that he would, and I hate to say that in front of his parents, but we know this. We are fighting for his life. We are fighting for Nelson Wells Jr.'s life, and we really need you all to fight for his life as well. I really would love for you all to take a look at our website, NelsonWellsJr.com. Figure out a way that you can help this family. And also, we need your prayers.
Yes.
We need your prayers. We'll take that too. We'll take that too.
Final comments.
I'm just thank everyone that has helped us this far with the prayers, the monetary donations, the work that they've put in. But we just got to keep pushing because, like Nelson said, Mom, if you don't hurry, I'm going to die. I don't want to die here. So please, please help him to get back home. I've never met 2 of his children, so we would love to come meet them. You know, it's just been a long journey, and of course we had to close our mouth with the threats. You know, don't talk about it. So that too played a part on, you know, getting it out public. But just continue to pray and go to our website, and thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rowland. Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it. Certainly keep us abreast of what happens, and we certainly hope this comes to conclusion and you'll be able to see your son, Nelson, as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
All right, we appreciate it. Folks, we'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
On the next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. Just who do you think you are? And maybe more importantly, who is it that you think you're trying to please? The answer to that second question is really wrapped up in the first. Think about that. Being the true, authentic you, no matter the circumstance.
But we learn the art of forgiveness, not only of forgiving one another, but forgiving ourselves. And we also learn how to love ourselves so that we can love each other.
That's next on A Balanced Life, here on Black Star Network.
I'm Dee Barnes, and on the next frequency, Professor Janelle Hobson joins us to talk about hip-hop and its intersection with feminism and racial equality, plus her enlightening work with Ms. Magazine and how the great Harriet Tubman connects with women in hip-hop.
So it was not hard for me to go from Harriet Tubman to hip-hop, honestly, because it is a legacy of Black women's resistance and Black women supporting our communities. That's what Harriet Tubman did.
That's on the frequency on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Sean Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, there's been a lot of talk about these mainstream polls showing Donald Trump getting in excess of 20% of the black vote in the election, where the folks at Black PAC partnered with Cornell Belcher's firm, Brilliant Corners Research and Strategies, to survey black voters, and the results are a lot different than what is being reported in these other polls. Adrian Shropshire is the executive director of Black PAC, joins me now from LA. Adrian, glad to have you on the show. So what does your poll say that makes it so different than all the rest of this stuff we've been hearing for the past several months?
So we have actually been polling and doing focus groups for the last 6 months. And part of that is because obviously before we head into any election cycle, we want to make sure that we are really clear on where black voters are, their opinions, their attitudes, how they're feeling about what is going on in the country. So we've been doing this for the last 6 months. So it should come as no surprise then that we are a little unnerved by this narrative that's emerging because of recent polling that suggests, as you said, that upwards of 20% of black voters will give their votes to Donald Trump and the Republican Party, because no, that is not what we have seen. And in some ways, I think, we certainly could look at the sample sizes in these polls. They're not robust. And certainly not like we're not, sampling or oversampling black voters. We're just polling black voters, period. And so our sample sizes are much more robust. When you have a small sample size, the potential to get outliers in there and then extrapolate what black voters think based on these outliers' opinions, all of that is playing into this. But what I can tell you is that our polling for the last 6 months and our focus groups don't suggest at all that there is some historic number of black folks that are saying that they're going to vote for Donald Trump. There is no racial realignment that appears to be happening in the research that we're doing. And in fact, the support levels for Donald Trump have not risen since 2020 in the research that we've done. So he has gotten between 8 and 12% of black voters saying that they're going to support him going back to 2020. And I think the same is true for the thermometer that we use. We use a thermometer when we ask people how warm or cold they feel toward a candidate. And Donald Trump's thermometer has hovered just above zero, the coldest of cold in our research going all the way back to 2016. So it is unsettling to hear, and not so much the polls themselves, but there is a narrative emerging that suggests that black people are going to do something that the actual voter turnout data doesn't say. So we can look at the polls and what people are saying, but we actually need to look at what happens and what has happened on Election Day when black people have been asked to turn out and support either Donald Trump or the Republican Party, because those numbers are strikingly and not surprisingly much lower than what any mainstream media poll has said.
So, and again, we look at these other polls. We are a fraction of those polled. Well, that's a lot different. Your poll, we are the entire poll. So you're getting a much better and robust understanding of black people and their thoughts and perspectives in your poll because it's just black people.
It is not, yeah, that's right. It's just black folks. And so you're going to get a range of opinions. And I think that, we always say, because we know this, that black folks are not a monolith, and that is true. But there are some things that black people have agreed on. There are some things that are very clear to us in terms of what is at stake. And this is the other thing that that just rings true for us. And obviously is, the opposite of what the mainstream polling is saying. We've been asking this question for the last 6 months. What is the biggest threat to the black community? We ask it in our polls and we ask it in our focus groups. And the number one answer is the re-election of Donald Trump, followed closely at number 2 by white supremacy. Those two things are not unrelated in the minds of Black folks. So Black people are very clear about the threat that Donald Trump poses to this country. They're very clear about the threat that he poses to American democracy, but they're also really clear about the threat that he poses specifically to our community. And so it is hard for me to believe that people who believe that Donald Trump is the single greatest threat to the Black community are also somehow then going to give him 20% of our vote above and beyond what we have done for him or Republicans over the last several election cycles.
This right here, go to my iPad, the slides that y'all presented, and you're showing actual results. 2016 exit polls show 8%, Pew said 6. In 2020, exit polls showed 12, Pew said 8. And then in 2022, exit polls show 9, and it was 6. But one of the things that pollster Terrence Woodbury showed is that it does. Now this is what I try to explain to people. This is national overall, but depending upon the state, that's different. So he said that Trump did better among African Americans, especially Black men in North Carolina, and the spillover that affected Tom Tillis. And so I'm always trying to explain to people, when you see these polls being discussed on television, they sort of mean nothing, because a presidential election are state elections. It's really what's happening in Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, as opposed to, across the country, because the reality is the election is going to come down to about 7 or 8 states.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so so our polling is both national polling and battleground polling. So it is trying to get a specific lens on the individual states, where we know that, that we know those states are going to determine the outcome of the election, but we also know that Black voters will be determinant in some ways in many of those states. I mean, what I will say is the numbers that you showed, the sort of exit polls versus Pew, the Pew numbers are the actual after the fact data, right? So it is going back and looking through who actually showed up, right? And not just the exit polls, which are always slightly higher than the actual turnout numbers and support numbers. So when we look at the Pew numbers, those are the ones that we use to say that this is what happened on election day, not the exit, because the exits are always a little bit off. The thing that I will say, though, is that even when we look at the individual states, we aren't seeing, again, like what the national polls are suggesting right now is actual racial realignment within the parties. There is nothing to indicate, not right now, or again, over the past several election cycles, that suggests that Black people are going to somehow, in record numbers, shift from one party to another. Now, that doesn't mean that Democrats don't have challenges, right, in this upcoming election cycle. But the challenge is not based on our research for the last several months and over the last few years, does not suggest that their biggest problem is actually Donald Trump and the Republican Party.
Well, one of the things that your survey showed is that the concern that Biden Harris should have is from third party. But that's also contingent if they actually qualify for the ballot in that particular state. Earlier, we were discussing why the Biden administration and the campaign, they're not focusing on the great work of the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, and why they're not touting those things. And so we talked about narrative, messaging, misinformation. Go back to my iPad. Y'all show here how people are getting information, let's say by social media. And it says users of TikTok, Twitter, X, and Instagram were more likely to report hearing negative news about Biden. Now, granted, social media is not representative of the entire country, but it is the echo chamber, if you will. And so really what your poll is saying to Biden-Harris campaign, y'all better step the hell your game up on these social applications where you are in the mix touting what you are doing. Otherwise, you're allowing others to define who you are and what you've done.
That's exactly right. And so what we're seeing in those numbers is that exactly what you said. That is where people are getting the most negative information about the Biden-Harris administration. And so yes, like I always say, like they need to be flooding the zone. Like the volume of content that is coming out really just needs to be increased. In part because people really do want to know the information. When we're in focus groups and we say to people, you know, are you aware of what the administration has done? Most people will say no. You present them with a list of all of the accomplished and across, as you say, not just in one area, right, but in a lot of areas. When you present that to people, people are pretty surprised. They're pretty surprised to learn it. The sort of emotional reaction goes from, you know, being angry that they don't know. And part of that anger is because people don't want to be out here saying things that aren't true. And they feel like the campaign and you know, those of us who run independent organizations have an obligation to actually get them the truth. And that is absolutely, you know, on the campaign and all of the surrogates that are a part of the campaign. But that information needs to increase because people appreciate it and it changes their perspective. Right now, they sort of are getting information from one place. They're getting Fox News talking points, right? The number of folks that sit in our focus groups and actually repeat back Fox News talking points, even though they don't watch Fox News, it's because those talking points and that messaging is showing up in their social media feeds. And while social media might not be fully representative, it is the place where the majority of people are saying that they're getting their news and information right now. Yep. So if you're looking for news and information, the majority of folks, at least in our polling, are going to social media first.
Last question before I go to my panel, and that is this here. New York Times, CNN, Quinnipiac, all these other polls, I see constant conversation on MSNBC and CNN and Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS, all these mainstream folks. Have they booked y'all to discuss your poll?
No, I'm here with you.
None of them? I mean, y'all sent the release out, what, 2 days ago? I mean, we got the release March 5th. Talking about this. And all of these places have been talking black men, black men, black men, black people. So none of these people have booked y'all?
No. And again, I go back to the concern around the narrative that is emerging, right? And there is something deep.
No, that's my whole point. They're having discussions about these other polls and black people, especially black men. And here y'all actually poll black people. Cornell Belcher is a paid contributor for MSNBC. You would think Morning Joe and the rest of these people would be talking about the poll that y'all commissioned.
Yeah, I mean, we want the truth to get out to the American people, right? We don't want to send, we should not want, I guess I should say, for false narratives to be out there or for data not to be discussed responsibly, quite frankly. And there is, again, like, it's insulting. I mean, the narrative would suggest that black folks are out here just casting ballots willy-nilly. We're not doing that, right? It would suggest that we somehow should just ignore our gut feelings about people who actually want to take away all of our rights, right? It would suggest that we're going to vote for people, you know, who want to undermine, again, not just American democracy, but our communities in general, and that we simply should just trust their polls, right? Not trust the things that we know, right? Not to trust what we know about recent history, what we know about our past, that we should not think about all that. We should just trust these polls. And that's just, it's irresponsible. And some might say it's malpractice.
Questions from my panel. Rebecca, you're first.
Hey, Adrian, it's good to see you. I'm going to explain the context of my question, then I'm going to ask the question. So in 2016, most of the polls showed that Hillary Clinton was up. It wasn't until September when Cornell Belcher rang the alarm and suggested, hey, excuse me, Hillary is in trouble. One thing that most of the pollsters didn't take into account is that Trump was able to draw out white voters who normally don't show up in elections. So I've really been listening hard to Trump's rhetoric, especially over the last few months for this go-round. And it sounds like the rhetoric he's using is to try to draw out black people who normally don't vote, but to draw them out and get them to convert and become Trump voters. Do you think that's possibly what Trump is trying to do, especially when he keeps touting black support? Because one thing that I noticed by looking through this polling memo, it talks about likely, African American voters. He talks about registered African American voters. Is there a chance that there are some Black folks who are not registered yet, who will be new to voting this year? Is there a chance that Trump will be able to get those types of folks out in a significant number that could actually impact and increase his Black support?
I actually don't think that the strategy is about winning over Black voters at all. And I don't think that it ever is with the Republican Party. I think that it is about depressing the vote. I think it is about convincing Black people that they shouldn't trust Democrats and therefore it's not worth their time to come out. And it's about saying to some Black voters who may be on the fence that you should give us a look. But largely it's about asking, keeping people home, right? Getting people to stay home. Or I think the other thing that we're seeing right now, obviously, is suggesting to people that there's an off-ramp to a third-party candidate. And as Roland said, you can suggest that if you want to, but people, we need to do a better job of sort of educating people on what it means to get to 270 electoral college votes. Because if you're not on the ballot in states, you're not getting electoral college votes. So we shouldn't be confusing people, telling or suggesting that if they vote third party, that somehow they're voting for someone who has, any chance in heck to actually win. So I think that the strategy is about depressing the vote. That's usually what it always is. Trump has some fixation with Black people. He has some obsession with Black men in particular. So he does the little things with the tennis shoes, right? He does the little things to, try and make him seem, like he's in with a set of people. But that stuff really is all about just trying to keep us home and trying to raise concern about the Democratic Party.
Scott?
Hey, Adrian, Scott Bolden here. Black people don't know what the Biden-Harris team has done. That's not their fault. That's Biden-Harris's fault, right? And so I'd be interested if they continue to lack these communications or presentations to Black folks and telling us what we've done. Does your polling suggest whether that's going to dictate whether more Black people come out to vote or not, or whether they're going to vote for another candidate, whether it's Donald Trump or a third-party candidate?
Yeah, so I would look to both our polling and our focus groups for the answer to that question. So when we ask folks what they've heard, oftentimes it's very little. And, in our focus groups in particular, people are very animated about it, right? Mm-hmm. They're very clear that they have not heard anything. And once we present to them, though, once we say, well, here are the things, right? Here are the things that we have said as a community are important to us, and here are the things that the Biden-Harris administration have done. People, again, as I said earlier, they're surprised. They're not happy about the fact that they don't know. And they're confused, right, about why they don't know. So, but once you present that to them and you allow people to talk about it, their perspective changes. They say, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I'm gonna give Joe Biden points for that, right? Or they say, well, I graded him at the beginning of the focus group. I gave him a D, but I didn't know he did all this, so I'm gonna give him a B, right? So people change their perspective. And it is important. Again, that's why it's the volume that matters. And we know that Democrats are historically not good at messaging. They're not good at tooting their own horn. They're not good at any of that. In a focus group a couple weeks ago in Detroit, a man said, you know what, Joe Biden needs to start running his mouth. And that's exactly what people want. They said Joe Biden needs to start bragging, like say all of the things, because we know what Trump said he did, whether he did it or not. We know what he said he did, and we remember it from 4 years ago or 3 years ago now, and we know what he is saying, claiming that he did now, because he talks about it. He puts his name on every single thing, and that Joe Biden needs to start doing that. And one other point I'll make on this is that people, even when they do know about the accomplishments, or even when they personally benefited from some of the policies that the Biden-Harris administration has moved, they often don't connect it to Joe Biden. So people will say, oh yeah, I got my student loan forgiven, but I didn't know that was Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. Or I paid my rent because of the American Rescue Plan, but I didn't know that was Joe Biden, right? So there is this thing about putting your name on it. Say you did it. Let people know that you did that. Right. Thing. People love Dark Brandon, right? So pull him out and let people know that you did the things. But it's also important that they start talking about not just what they did, but what they're going to do. Yep. Right? Because we're getting to a point where people are going to say, okay, I got all that. That's cool. But there's some stuff that you didn't get done. So what are you going to do about that? So they do need to start transitioning to what they are going to do, not just what they did.
Robert?
I think that's a very important point that you're making. And what I've noticed, one of the problems is that Donald Trump has mastered the art of speaking on a 3rd through 7th grade level when he's talking about issues. An example I like to use immigration. If you ask Democrats what are you going to do on immigration, they say, well, we need a bilateral conversation with our friends within our hegemonic sphere of influence to create a pathway to citizenship, as well as increase border security, as well as creating something along the lines of something like that. Trump's answer will be wall. What can Democrats do to simplify their messaging down from a paragraph to something like wall that more people can understand and be able to rally around?
Well, you just said it. It is simplifying the message. It's also what we see when we talk about the Democrats have done big things, and they say what, and we say the Inflation Reduction Act. Well, that doesn't mean anything to anybody, right? What is in the Inflation Reduction Act? Right, what has it meant for Black communities? We have to break those things down, and we have to talk about specifically what it means for our communities. So you said it, like we have to break. It's not that hard to break stuff down, and people don't actually care about everything, right? There are some things that are actually really important and really specific to our community, but we also have to start talking about the things that people feel, right? Like some of the stuff that we hear in our focus groups, this is about emotion. Right? When a woman in a focus group says the hardest thing for me to do right now is buy food for my daughter, that is unsettling, right? That woman is feeling something very deeply. She's afraid, right? And they have to begin to speak to that too. And that's part of what Trump does as well. So when you talk about immigration, what he's doing is stirring up fear in people. Right. And I know Democrats don't want to do that in that way, nor should they. Need to be careful about using rhetoric that is more divisive than is about bringing people together. But people are feeling very unstable right now. People are scared. Right. That thing about what's the greatest threat to the Black community, number one, Donald Trump. People are scared. Right. They're terrified of another Trump reelection. So Democrats need to talk in ways that people can understand. They need to break down these big things for people so that they can see how it benefited them, and they need to talk more about what they're going to do on things that haven't been addressed yet.
If people want to look at the poll itself and all information, where can they go to see it?
Then go to blackpac.com.
All right, blackpac.com, BLACKPAC.com. Adrian, we appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, folks, real quick break. We come back. Robert's running for office, and Megyn Kelly, she think he a flaming liberal. We're going to discuss that real quick when we come back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Grow your business or career with Grow with Google's wide range of online courses, digital training, and tools. Gain in-demand job skills with flexible online training programs designed to put you on the fast track to jobs in high-growth fields. No experience is necessary. Learn at your own pace. Complete the online certificate program on your own terms. Stand out to employers, get on a path to in-demand jobs, and connect with top employers who are currently hiring. Take one professional career certificate program or all 6. Earn a Google Career Certificate to prepare for a job in a high-growth field like data analytics, project management, UX design, cybersecurity, and more. All professional career certificate programs must be completed by December 31st, 2024. Scan the QR code to complete the application. There are 1,000 scholarships available. Grow with Google and J. Hood and Associates. Be job ready and qualify for in-demand jobs.
Bruce Smith, creator and executive producer of the Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, y'all, so you've been watching the trial in Atlanta regarding Fonnie Willis and the Trump folks trying to get her expelled. There's a judge in the case, and he's overseeing the case. Well, we always are trying to explain to y'all, these are elected positions out here. They are elected positions. And so that particular judge in the case, his name is, of course, Fulton Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee. Well, I saw this tweet today, and the tweet says that civil rights attorney and Red Talk Radio host Robert Patillo plans to run against him. Now, guess what? Lil Megyn Kelly, she ain't so happy with that, y'all. So what happened, I saw this here. Terrible news for Team Trump in Atlanta. Judge McAfee was running unopposed. Now you get a Jesse Jackson disciple challenging him in a district that went 73% for Biden. McAfee is going to need a rock-solid spine to disqualify Fonnie Willis now. All right, well, first, Robert, are you running? Is this true?
This is indeed true. I will be filing my qualification paperwork on Friday. We're supposed to make the big announcement Friday, but this leaked to the press, and, Atlanta media is going to run with it. But yes, we are indeed filing. We're going to qualify. We're going to race, and we're going to win this race. Not because of the Fonnie Willis case, but for the exact what Megyn Kelly said. This political spin that has happened to the Fulton County Court, where people think that you need to have a rock-solid backbone to stand up for Trump. We need judges who stand up for the rule of law, not for a particular political party.
So first of all, what I thought was hilarious, yes, you did work for Rainbow Push, but boy, she got you down as, he gonna come out with, it's gonna be Dashiki Reverend Jackson, Afro Reverend Jackson. I guess Megyn ain't never Googled you to understand your views on the Second Amendment and stuff like that.
One of the big things that I think of whenever conservatives start talking about, all this new black support they're going to get, but then they have tweets like this that shows them they have absolutely no black friends or any black people in their orbit. Black does not mean liberal. Black just means you're a black person. She saw a black person and assumed that I was some, bleeding heart liberal. I'm very strong in the Second Amendment. I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church. I have many views that align with social conservatives. What they don't understand, however, is that the MAGA movement is not a conservative movement. The MAGA movement is not a fiscally conservative movement. It spent $8 trillion in 4 years. The MAGA movement is not a Christian conservative movement, somebody who has 5 kids by 3 different women. The MAGA movement is not a family values related movement, someone who had to pay a porn star $130,000. When we're talking about conservative values, we actually have to stand on those values. And regardless of what Megyn Kelly or any other Trumpites want to call me, the entire conceptualization has to be about putting the rule of law above the person. That we are a nation of laws, not a nation of individuals. And once they get back to those constitutional principles, they will understand what an actual moderate, centrist, middle-of-the-road judge does, which is simply be an umpire calling balls and strikes, enforcing the rules, and making sure the courts operate appropriately.
Well, but the other deal is this here. Folk like Megyn Kelly, they don't know jack about black people. They don't even realize that black people, depending upon where you grew up, could be conservative in their thoughts and views, but we vote Democrat based upon those public policy. And so that's why I got a kick out of her dumb tweet. And again, and the thing is, she ain't the brightest bulb in a dark room. And she should know better as a so-called lawyer to understand one's background and to learn how to do some research before you open your mouth.
Well, I think a big thing is also understanding exactly what is at stake in this case, because in this election, because it's not about the Fonnie Willis case. It's about looking at a judicial system that has been broken. Where I've been in courthouses and in the Fulton County Courthouse for the last 15 plus years, seeing the inefficiencies that exist, and the fact that Donald Trump, because he's a former president and a billionaire and has the complexion for protection, can get his case into court, into hearings within 3 or 4 months, and you have people who are languishing there, whose cases have been stuck for 3, 4, 5 years waiting disposition, where you have an overburdened system where you're not getting actual justice, you're getting just a mill to pump out plea bargains, whether someone is guilty or not, where we're concentrating on jailing young offenders as opposed to putting in place restorative justice programs that will make sure that we get them out of the criminal justice system and into the actual workforce so they can be productive members of our society. So more so, I know they want to focus on this, the Willis case, but in reality, what we have to look on is fixing a system that is broken from the inside out. And a lot of us who have been activists on the outside, I'm encouraging you to become part of the inside. Do the hard work, get in the arena, run those races, win those races, make the change from the inside out.
So you were looking at this office before this trial even started?
Correct. I was looking at this office from the time before McAfee was even appointed over a year ago. It just so happens that now he's up for a full election, and that's the seat that is open. It wasn't spurned on by this particular case, as many people want to make it about. They would know these things if they actually called and asked me before starting to write articles and sending out tweets and press releases that this is a far bigger issue than any one particular case. But this case shines a spotlight on what happens when you have inexperienced judges. Remember, Judge McAfee, I think, was only 34, 35 years old. He doesn't have any experience as a defense attorney, so he only seen things from the prosecution side of the table. And we're seeing this go throughout this Fonnie Willis hearing, where it seemed to be utter chaos in that courtroom. And you're shining this light on Atlanta and the Fulton County judicial system almost as being an episode of Real Housewives of Atlanta or some other reality show, as opposed to being a serious courtroom where real laws and real rulings take place, where we're truthfully respecting the Constitution and fighting to ensure that the rule of law governs.
And to your point, go to my iPad. I mean, this is the resume of Judge McAfee. You know, graduate of Emory Law School, Inspector General for the Georgia Office of the State Inspector General, Assistant U.S. Attorney, Assistant DA, and you're right, not a defense attorney, anything along those lines. I'm sure your fellow panelists have some questions before you go. So let's see here. Oh, I guess we'll let the other lawyers ask a question first.
So, Robert, look, if I may, I hear you, but I've been on both sides of the law. I've practiced in a lot of jurisdictions. The criminal justice system in every jurisdiction is overloaded with cases and overloaded with young black men and young black women. And so when you talk about it being a nation of laws, right, and what's wrong with the system, I hope you will spend a great deal of time talking about how to fix it, because that's a huge, huge undertaking to just talk about fixing it when so many jurisdictions, we know, urban jurisdictions, are just overcapacitated. You plug one hole, it sprouts out somewhere else. Can you talk about some ideas you have about fixing the system?
Absolutely. I think one of the things has to be putting fire under the tails of the prosecutors to either make your case, move it, or dismiss it. We have far too many cases where the prosecutor can come to court term after term and say further notice or continuance, or they need to have another hearing just to kick the can down the road. 2-3 years later, after that happens, and you're flying into town for appearance after appearance, you just take a plea bargain to get rid of it. That is their way of handling cases. If you take that power away and say you have to have this case tried by this date certain, just as we're seeing in this Trump case, you'll see those caseloads diminish significantly because they will actually have to dismiss the cases they don't have evidence on. Secondarily, we have to work further on diversion tracks, particularly for young offenders. I've seen far too many times in courtrooms such as Sean Ellen LaGrua, Gabrielle Banks here in Atlanta, here in Fulton County, where if you put in place these diversion programs, you don't get 100%, but you probably get a good 50 to 60% of those young men who, instead of entering a life of crime, instead of getting a PhD from Fulton County Jail or from going downstate, they're actually able to put themselves into a trade school, into a program that teaches them how to actually get their lives together, budget, work, understand there are other ways to make money than the alternative economy, as Angela Davis called it, and then moving those people out of the system. Once you start moving those numbers out, you can get to the place where prosecutors have the ability to actually try the cases they need to try, which are the violent criminal offenders, which are ruining the quality of life for all of us, and the same people we all believe need to be locked up. But that's part of having a understanding of the criminal justice system, not just from the prosecutor side of the bench, where we have a conveyor belt between prosecutors and judges, but from the criminal defense side of the belt to understand how you can create compromises and actually move the system forward.
Rebecca?
I ask every candidate this question: why you? Why now? Why this office?
Reverend Gerald Durley always gives a sermon.
She don't need you saying excellent question. She know that.
You asked her for one question, and as usual, she asked three. Now, I got two more.
No, she asked one question.
I know it's your show.
She asked one question. Scott, stop talking.
Scott, from one attorney to another. You didn't hear the comma?
She asked one question. Robert,
three parts.
Look, Reverend Gerald Durley talks about Kairos moments, that you have two ways of measuring time. You have chronos, the minutes, the seconds, the hours on a clock that tick at regular intervals. But then you have Kairos moments. That's the moment where time intersects with destiny. And when that moment comes, you cannot let it pass you by. And I felt that as a matter of reality, that this is a one-time in my career where I feel that I can make a contribution to the bench. I told my wife about 10 years ago, if I ever talk about becoming Superior Court judge, please take me out somewhere and get me a mental health evaluation. But just going by the nature of the system right now, the inadequacies and the inefficiencies that we're seeing, the fact that we have this conveyor belt between prosecutors and the bench and jurisdiction after jurisdiction, that we have this new Nixonian tough on crime conceptualization of working its way through the nation again, that doesn't talk about rehabilitation, does not talk about restoration, does not talk about fixing actual problems. I thought that this is the time to actually get my hands dirty and do the work instead of trying to compel other people to change their actions. Get in there, change things, and be an example for others. And that's why I thought it was this time, this seat, this moment, and the time was right for me to do so.
All right, then. All right, Robert, we appreciate it. I know you got to go, so thanks a bunch. Good luck in the race, and I'm sure Megyn Kelly is going to be trying to give you a call to, inquire about your background.
Absolutely. Go to judgepatillo.com. That's JUDGEPATILLO.com. Make a contribution today. We got to get off the ground rolling. Scott McAfee has $100,000 in the bank already. We have zero because we did not expect to announce this soon. So we're looking forward to everybody's support. Thanks so much, Roland.
When's the election? November?
Hey,
the election is...
Hey, Scott, stop talking. Robert, when is the election?
The election is special election. It will be May 21st. We have a month and a half. Or so to get this thing up and running and up and going. So qualification ends on Friday. The election will be the end of May. Runoff will be beginning of June if a runoff is needed. And Scott, to your point, $3,300 is the contribution limit. You can make that online right now.
Oh, he got that.
Thank you for answering my question.
Oh, he got that. So,
very important.
So, Robert, do me a favor. If Megyn Kelly has the guts to book you on her show, bring all your guns you always trying to show on this show.
Will do.
Click, click.
I got you.
Click, click.
All right. Robert, thanks a bunch.
All right.
We go to a break. Y'all, we going to come back. Wait until I show y'all the crazy thoughts of this black MAGA Republican who is their nominee for governor of North Carolina. Every black person in North Carolina should be kicking that fool to the curb. That's next. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
Me, Sherry Shepard, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, last night was Super Tuesday, and there were elections all over the place. And look, it was going to be Biden, Trump, presidential level. But really, the whole key is what happened down ballot. Well, one of the places, North Carolina, where the Republicans nominated for their choice for governor is the current Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson. Mark Robinson is a Holocaust denier. He believes that the civil rights movement was a joke. The Democratic Governors Association is already out with a hard-hitting ad against him. Watch.
Abortion is a scourge that needs to be run out of this land.
It's not your body anymore. It's y'all's body. And yes, that includes the daddy.
many things were lost during the civil rights movement. So many freedoms were lost during the civil rights movement that shouldn't have been lost.
I'd love to pass a law that restricts abortion. We could pass a bill saying you can't have an abortion in North Carolina for any reason.
This little minor thing happens in January. All right, you're horrible.
If there's a movement in this country that is demonic and that is full of the spirit of Antichrist, it is the transgender movement. Homosexuality, any of that filth. And yes, I called it filth. Abortion is a scourge that needs to be run out of this land.
And keep in mind that Mark Robinson's wife, Yolanda, she actually had an abortion. Check this out, Rebecca. He don't like folks like you having a right to vote. Listen to what Mark Robinson said in 2020.
A few days ago and asked her, what America are we going back to make America great again? The one where women couldn't vote or black people were swinging from trees? I would say to him if I was standing in front of him, I absolutely want to go back to the America where women couldn't vote. Do you know why? Because in those days, we had people who fought for real social change, and they were called Republicans. A few days ago and asked her.
So Mark Robinson wants to go back to the days, Rebecca, where people like you couldn't vote.
So,
right.
I think both. I think both Scott and I don't even know where to begin because there's so much. I've been watching clips about him and just watching a clown down in North Carolina. Here's the thing. I thought Herschel Walker was bad last cycle. But what is really bad is that this guy has actually, and this is also what's sad too, he is, I think, the first Black person since Reconstruction who's been elected, I think, statewide in North Carolina, which is insane. Well, you know, and that's from either party, Republican or Democrat. The thing about Robinson is, as much as he wants to invoke that the Republican Party is good for Black people, not this Republican Party. If we're going back to the Republican Party that actually did stuff to promote civil rights, did stuff to protect the Black community and advance the Black community, at that time, I think they were called radical Republicans. But he is not a radical Republican. And so a lot of the stuff that he's saying is very nonsensical. This is once again why I wish North Carolina Democrats would have got behind Cherie Beasley and would have made sure that she would have had statewide office, because North Carolina needs a counter to what's going to happen with Mark Robinson. I don't know very much about the Democratic candidate who's going to be running against him, but from past
the Democratic candidate is Josh Stein, and Josh Stein is the current Attorney General.
All right.
Okay.
Right.
I don't know much about him. Which also, you know, I don't even know if that's my problem or if that's his problem. But what my concern is that race is going to become an issue in this campaign. I don't know that Stein is going to be able to deal with those issues of race, and there could be a possibility that Mark Robinson would be able to get enough Black support in order to win. Like, it's sad because this guy, in my opinion, his ideologies are dangerous for Black people in North Carolina, but I don't know that the Democratic Party has an effective answer to shut it down.
This is what Trump said about his buddy Mark Robinson. Scott, you're gonna love this.
But, you know, I heard him coming in on the plane. I was listening, and I said to the people on the plane, watch this. This is Martin Luther King on steroids, okay? Now, I told that to Mark. I said, I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King ×2. And he looked at me, and I wasn't sure, was he angry because that's a terrible thing to say, or was he complimented? I have never figured it out. But I'm telling you, he's one of, right? When I said that to you, you looked like, I don't know if I like that comment. You should like it, because you are outstanding, and you're going to be the next governor, so that's going to be very cool.
Scott, take it away.
why you ask me questions about all these ignorant mofos? I mean, I don't even know why we.
I asked. No, first of all, let's be clear.
Well, hold on.
No, wait, Scott. He is. Let me be very clear. He is the Republican nominee for governor.
I know.
No, Joe Biden lost North Carolina by 2.5 points in 2020. The incumbent governor, Roy Cooper, is not running. Mark Robinson is the current lieutenant governor. Mark Robinson can win. So this is real.
Yeah, it's real. It's called real ignorance. But let me ask you something. What does going back to radical Republicans to make America great again have to do with why women shouldn't vote? I don't understand his connection there. He went from A to Z. What does that have to do with women? He don't want women to vote, and that's his explanation. I mean, it makes no sense. I think you're right. He's dangerous. And one other thing, because he's black, and a lot of black people in North Carolina and a lot of other jurisdictions will vote for somebody because they're black, because they haven't seen anybody, a black governor in North Carolina. That's a powerful selling message. Martin Luther King, my goodness gracious, Martin Luther King turned over in his grave, listen to all this nonsense and stuff. So, I mean, he's dangerous. I think you're right about that. And we have to, Rebecca's right. Is the Democratic nominee prepared to deal with this foolishness, this idiocy? Because this is just he's just an idiot, basically. But it sells with this party, the Trump party, it sells. Their view of the world is not based on policy or fiscal conservatism or being hawkish on international stuff. It's all about being angry and being mad and hating America the way it is and wanting to go back to the 50s and 60s. But what Mark, this cat doesn't realize is if you go back to when you think America was great again, he wouldn't have a platform. He wouldn't be running for anything. He'd be silenced. So what is he talking about?
Well,
it's just ignorance, man. He's an idiot.
They love him. Real quick, Josh Stein dropped this video, and so let's go ahead and y'all have in the control room the Josh Stein video. Go ahead and play it.
Here's something else I'm not supposed to say.
If I had all the power right now, let's say I was the governor and had a willing legislature, we could pass a bill and say you can't have an abortion in North Carolina for any reason.
We've got it down to 12 weeks. The next goal is to get it down to 6 and just keep moving from there.
Yeah, I'd love to pass a law that restricts abortion.
Abortion is a scourge that needs to be run out of this land.
It's not your body anymore. It's y'all's body. And yes, that includes the daddy.
Called to be led by men, but when it was time to face down Goliath, sent David, not DeVita, David. Homosexuality, any of that filth. And yes, I call it filth. Do not turn your children over to these wicked people. I got them AR-15s in case the government gets too big for its britches. Because I'm going to fill the backside of them britches with some lead.
Someone who thinks that women do not have a place in our society, who thinks the Holocaust didn't exist, who thinks that the civil rights movement was about nothing. I would not support someone who thinks that way.
A vote for Mark Robinson might feel good because you think he might win the primary, but his outrageous and bigoted statements will make him a loser and unelectable.
Go to my iPad. In 2014, this article says, Mr. Robinson echoed Hitler's rhetoric on Facebook in a statement about racial pride. Last July, he argued that he didn't support the Nazi leader just because he quoted him. Because you quoted Hitler, you support Hitler, he said during a speech. I guess every history book in America supports Hitler now. They all quote him. Okay. All right, folks. We're going to keep y'all abreast of this in North Carolina. Listen, y'all got to show up and show out to keep this crazy quack out. And guess what? You flip North Carolina, that makes the pathway for also Biden-Harris to win the presidency. This cannot stand. Going to break, we come back, we'll talk with Isaac Hayes III, the founder of Fanbase. It's a new day. They've got some new things happening that you want to hear about. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
For the last 15 or maybe 16 years, 18 years, I'll say, since when I moved to LA, I hadn't had a break. I hadn't had a vacation, probably a week vacation here or there. Right. This year, after I got finished doing Queen Sugar and we wrapped it out, because I knew I had 2 TV shows coming on at the same time, I said, I'm going to take a little break. So I've been on break for the first time, and I can afford it. Praise God. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I can afford it. I'm like, I can sit back and ain't got nothing to worry about, man. But this was the first time in almost in 2 decades that I've actually had time to sit back and smell the roses.
Farquhar, executive producer, Proud Family.
Bruce Smith, creator and executive producer of the Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. And you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, we've talked a lot on the show about the social media app Fanbase. I got it up right here, so if you go to my iPad, you'll see here my account on Fanbase, which is Roland S. Martin, and so you can check it out. And so, like for instance, right here, you can post photos and different things along those lines. You could do a story, you could go live. You got flicks, and you've got audio chat rooms, and then you got what is Plus here. So, what's the latest happening with Fanbase? Isaac Hayes III, he is the founder of the app. He joins us right now. All right, Isaac, what you been cooking up? Got you on mute.
A $17 million.
All right, let's start over. You on mute. Start over.
I'm on mute. You can't hear me?
No. We're here now. We hear you now.
Okay. We just launched a $17 million equity crowdfund, reggae crowdfund on Start Engine for Fanbase. This is unprecedented. We are raising $17 million, and we're allowing the general public to invest. Fanbase has already raised $10 million in the first 3 or 4 years through equity crowdfunding in what we call a Reg CF. But now we're raising $17 million so we can scale the company faster. We have over 570,000 users now, 190 countries on iOS and Android. Our revenue doubled 100% from 2022 to 2023. And so it's time to scale the company. And we're making this offer available for anyone to invest on Start Engine. So you can go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. The minimum to invest is $399. And the current valuation of Fanbase has now grown to $160 million. And Fanbase is the most successful Black-founded app since Black Planet in the year 2000. So we've done an enormous amount, and I've done this pretty much independently without venture capital. I've always wanted the people to own part of the platform. So I've always wanted the users, the content creators, and our culture and our community to own part of this platform. So I'm excited to be able to do that. And we have a lot kind of coming this year. We just launched also branded audio on web. So you can listen to any audio room on Fanbase without even having to download the app. If you find a clickable link to the app, anybody shares a link like anybody, you can listen on your phone, listen on your laptop, or you can download the app if you want to listen as well. So there's a lot of cool functionality that we're building into the platform.
So if I'm on the app right now, so I obviously do a post, I can do a post a photo, things along those lines. I can do a story. I can literally go live on, what's Flicks? What's that?
So Flicks is short form video, kind of like our version of what TikTok or Reels could be. You can post short videos up to about 3 minutes long. Add music, add effects, text, be creative, and do that. And then audio, again, is audio chat room. So if you're familiar with Spaces, that's on Twitter or Clubhouse, where you just, you can get in a room, have conversations. We have camps on Fanbase that talk about a great many things, great subjects, relationships, finance, religion, all these things that, that people have conversations about. So we do that as well. And then we have Fanbase Plus, which is like our version of like YouTube/Netflix. So you can upload up to 2 hours worth of content, put it behind a paywall, or for free. Fanbase is free to download and free to use. So I wanted to make sure that we had, that kind of stuff available for everybody. That's right now we're looking at this audio. So
you're saying right now, go to my phone, y'all. So let's say upload video. So let's just say I had an hour interview and I wanted to put it behind a paywall, and I can set whatever price I want for people to be able to watch that video. And then if it's $1.99, then if they want to watch it, that's what they pay, right?
Yeah, well, it's subscription based. So think of yourself as being your own Netflix. So you can charge anywhere from $2.99 a month to $99.99 a month for content you create. But again, the app is free to download, free to use. It doesn't cost anything to download and use Fanbase. It's the optionality, the hybrid of having followers, but then content creators who put so much effort and energy into their content also need a way to be compensated. And so you can have subscribers the same way. So I wanted to build a hybrid platform that doesn't focus on advertising, which has everybody getting kicked off platforms, their content suppressed. So I wanted to make sure that, anybody has a voice on social media and they're allowed to express themselves, but also make some money because, 59% of brand new content creators that came out in the last year made less than $100.
Wow.
In a year, less than $100 in a year. 59% of beginning content creators made less than $100 in a year. And that's ridiculous because they're putting hours and hours of their lives into the content. So on Fanbase, you can have, like I said, subscribers from $2.99 to $99.99 a month, and you can have love so people can tip you. And there are people making thousands of dollars a month on Fanbase, tens of thousands of dollars. And so that's extremely important that, you're able to monetize your content that way. In this new era, we're going to that era anyway. Everybody's going to be their own Netflix in about 5 years. I'm just letting people know that, if you want to create content and monetize it, you'll be able to do that.
Before I go to Rebecca with some questions, and here's the thing that I had a conversation the other day, and this woman was talking about, content creators and what they can do, and is what you just said. I said, you do know most of these people ain't making no money. I said, they're posting stuff, they're making no money. I said, and they're getting frustrated, they're burning out. I said, and what people also don't understand, let me just check right now. If I go on Instagram right now, and you talk about this all the time. So I have on Instagram right now 705,000 followers. And people go, oh my God, you've got 705,000 followers. Yet if I click go live right now, maybe 280, maybe 300 will show up. That's not even 1%. And they are purposely throttling your followers. So when you post something, all 705,000 people are not seeing my post.
No.
On Fanbase, that's different. Explain.
Yeah, so that's content suppression. People call it shadow banning, content suppression. You got to think about 700,000 people. That's like a network program. That's amazing. And they're not sending out 700,000 notifications when you go live. They're not doing that, because they don't make money. They're trying to make money off advertising. So they suppress your content, that you create more content so they have more content to run ads in between and make money. And so we don't suppress content on Fanbase. We don't run ads. So it's not an ad model. It's a rev share model. So there is no limitation on the type of content that can be suppressed on your content. Right there is an audio room on Fanbase that we had, audience, people participating on stage. It's great conversations. It's a great time. But yeah, like, content suppression happens to every single person actually on social media. So I always say that Instagram is in competition with its user base. They can't let you reach all these people for free. Like I said, when you go live, they're not sending out 750,000 notifications to everybody, not even close. What you're going to love about Fanbase, which is coming at the end of this month, which is part of this raise and that we're pushing for also, is we're launching like 24-hour live. So not only will you be live to your following, you'll be live to the entire app whenever you go live. So whenever you go live on Fanbase, whoever's on the app at the time will be able to see your live. So not only your followers, but any person that's on Fanbase. And again, we're moving towards engagement. I want visibility. I want people to see. I want millions of people watching people content. I want to have people have tons of engagement, tons of views. I'm not locking that down because I'm trying to make advertising off people, make advertising revenue. So that's the difference.
All right, I got another question, but I'm gonna hold it. Rebecca, go.
So I want to talk Risa Tisa. 3 weeks ago, she put up a 50-plus part series on TikTok. I think it's been 400 million views since then. Her account was demonetized at one point. I don't know if it's been remonetized. Can you talk about if anything like that would ever happen on Fanbase?
No, so number one, she didn't even qualify for monetization until about halfway through telling the series. Then when she did, she reposted a video and they took her monetization capability away. And she has no control over that. And I think the amazing story that she told, she should be getting compensated for that because it's driving 400 million eyeballs. Okay, so let's put 400 million views in perspective. 400 million views is 4 times the amount of people that watch the Super Bowl. So understand that. So that's like 4 Super Bowls that she brought to TikTok, and they're making money off that advertising revenue, and none of that money is going in her pocket. So she brought 4 Super Bowls worth of visibility to TikTok, and she said she might have made maybe $1,000, maybe $2,000, which is ridiculous. And so there should be ways that users can tip her, support her, subscribe to her. If she wants to turn this into a movie or a television show, she should be able to do that and then build that audience based off what she's doing on platforms like Fanbase. That's why it's so important. I saw that, and that's ridiculous. And TikTok, especially with people of color and the algorithm, they often don't understand Black culture. They often, I actually had seen someone go live and somebody said something that is familiar to the Black community that was said, and they were saying, oh, your account's about to be banned for racist, rhetoric or whatever. And it's just like, it's impossible for someone of culture to be able to feel free to say what they want to on platforms like this when they're so heavily dependent on advertising. That's how they make their money.
And again, to show people who don't understand the numbers when you talk about following, go to my iPad. This is the Monday ratings of Fox News Channel, CNN, MSNBC. So if we legitimately had all of our content seen, let's say on Instagram, 705,000 followers, that's literally more people that watched Laura Coates at 11, Abby Phillips at 10 p.m., Caitlin Collins at 9 p.m., Anderson Cooper was 7:30, Aaron Burnett was 7:17. More people who watched Wolf Blitzers at 6 p.m. And so that's the difference. These companies, they are not trying for the content creator to reach that number of people. And so what Fanbase does, and this is why we've been saying to Black people, hey, let's stop making other apps rich. Let's migrate our people over to Fanbase. We can do the exact same thing, and then we're able to build something and not sitting here complaining, man, they demonetize, or I have to take this down, or I can't see this here. There's an easy fix, especially for a lot of these Black celebrities, Isaac.
Man, listen, so I saw a video, God bless her heart, Amanda Seals was on Instagram upset because she's shadow banned and they're not letting her content through. And someone sent me that message and they were like, what is it about, our community begging to be on platforms where we're not accepted? And I keep it very honest. People are really addicted to the fame. I understand that. Like, people want to be famous sometimes over making money because they think that fame is a pathway to money, when in all honesty, direct-to-consumer transactions are the future of what social media is going to be about. So it's really saying, I'm subscribing to you like I'm subscribing to Netflix. That's the most important part. Secondly, platforms like Facebook, Meta, right? So Meta is a $2.2 trillion company, right? Mostly none of us own any part of Meta before it became a public company. Mm-hmm. The reason that I'm allowing people to invest, the general public, anyone to invest in Fanbase, is because turning platforms like Instagram into like a $300 billion piece of IP, right? Imagine you own part of a $300 billion piece of IP, something like Instagram. If you could have invested in it 10, 15 years ago when it came out, when it started about in 2010, 13 years ago when it came out. So we make these platforms popular. Risa Tisa, Kai Cenat, like Drewski, like all this content that we make, bring all these eyeballs that run ads and make money, but nobody has any equity. The entire play for Fanbase is an equity play for every content creator, every person on the planet that feels left out, that wants to own a piece of something, not after the company's gone public and is worth billions and billions of dollars, but really get the return of actually having ownership of something that scales and grows by simply using the platform. So Risa Tisa could come to Fanbase, buy some shares, and say, you know what, I'm going to start telling my content, my stories over there, and she actually owns part of the company, and she can monetize on the front end. So I don't think, we've never been here before. No one is doing anything like this. I can openly say none of the major social networks have ever allowed the public to invest in them before institutional investors. Institutional investors are the big boys that come in and take, put 5 million in a round, 10 million in a round, and then they have large chunks of the company, right, that wind up being worth millions and billions of dollars. But the general public never sees any of that. So that's the main reason why I want people to invest in Fanbase. Like I said, go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest, buy some shares. I've done this. I'm the first black man ever. This is all history. I'm the first black man ever to raise $10 million in Reg CF crowdfunding. It's never been done before. Now I've gone up and said, I'm going to raise $17 million. And we want to raise this money really fast, Roland. The importance of, I don't doubt that we can raise $17 million. We're going to raise $17 million. How fast we raise $17 million is important because now we can spend more to develop the app more, bring more functionality, bring more to marketing, hire more personnel, really bolster up the app. This is a modern marvel of what we've been able to do with the small team that we had of a black tech startup founded out of Atlanta, Georgia, built by some amazing people from all over the world, including Argentina. I think that is an incredible effort that we've done, and it's a miracle. It's a living miracle of what Fanbase is, and so I think people should take time to take notice. Like, look around, do your research. Like, find another app that does what Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Clubhouse, Facebook all does. Black founded, allows you to monetize your content, doesn't suppress your content, and allows you to own part of the company and lets you monetize. You won't find one because there's never been one. It didn't exist until I invented it. Peer-to-peer in-app purchase subscription. That means the ability to take your phone and press a couple buttons and subscribe to a person like you subscribe to Netflix or Spotify did not exist until I invented that. And now every app that you see, if you see subscriptions on Twitter, subscriptions on YouTube, subscriptions on Instagram, subscriptions on TikTok, and you can use a face scan or a fingerprint to subscribe to someone, they got that from me. That is complete confirmation that it didn't exist. And so that's the thing that I say all the time is like, tech is also about ideas and then money, the ability to ideate on those ideas. So I said, oh, okay, well, I know that young people in black culture have all the ideas. All I need is the money. But I'm going to let everybody else own a part of the company too. So that's the significance of what we're doing with Fanbase. And so this is the most important, critical moment of the company because this is going to catapult us past 1 million users, I believe. We have over 570,000 users. We're in 190 countries on iOS and Android. We're on the web. We're doing amazing things. But this is a very, very pivotal moment in the history of this company. And I really want everybody to be a part of it by investing.
And for the people who are always saying, man, we need to have our own.
This is it. This is it. This is a black founded company, not a black only. I want the entire world on Fanbase. But again, I know that I can build anything that Meta can build, anything that TikTok can build. But what I know, we all know is they can't build black culture. And so we need to leverage that culture to the point of equity and ownership and monetization in a platform, in an infrastructure, not go on the app and make the app popular and make money and we get talked about and we become memes and all that, but they make all the money on ads. No, we actually need to have equity in these companies and actually have ownership in them. So I'm stressing the importance of ownership. I know people getting those tax refund checks coming in. Look, it's $3.99 to invest. I'll say this quickly. 28,000 people. Only 28,000 people investing $600 gets Fanbase to the $17 million goal. It takes 28,000 people investing $600, and we're where we need to be. And I want to close this raise within 90 days. 60 to 90 days is my goal. I want mass velocity. I want people to tell their friends. I want people to go crazy. Call your aunts, your cousins. Tell everybody, man, go to Start Engine, grab some shares. Like, let's make this company, and then download the app and then use the app and then bring your community over there and watch what happens, because we've never been here before.
And for everybody to know, to understand, I'll text Isaac and I'll be like, yo, man, I can only post one photo at a time. Well, when you get more money to be able to raise more money, hire more developers, you can now add more bells and whistles. And for everybody who's watching, that was a moment when Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all of these social media, they were not humming along like they are. They had glitches and they had issues and they didn't have everything. I remember I didn't get on Vine when it launched. Why? Because it was 7 seconds. I didn't get on Snapchat when it launched. Why? Because you couldn't save videos. I said, why am I gonna create content and I can't go back and watch it or even share it? What happened? Yeah. Snapchat does what they do. Instagram changes. Instagram used to be what, 15 seconds? Then it changed, and then you can longer. So people just need to understand, all these apps that we use, they were not just banging out the door perfect. They had to be developed, but they got investment. They got hundreds of millions of dollars in investment to do what they do right now. And you raised a fraction of that, and this is the opportunity that we have to actually, yes, build something, but invest in it. And as you grow and get bigger, that $600 that you invested, that's now worth far more as Fanbase gets bigger.
Well, people that invested in the first round, we were valued at $20 million. Their investment is 8 times larger now. It's an 8x. It's 8x. It's grown 8x from 20 million to 160 million.
Did I invest in the first or the second? I think the first.
No, you invest in the first and the second.
Oh, there you go. Okay, cool.
But the important part about what you said, and people that say that functionality, I can tell you things that are coming, that are in the pipeline, that will be happening this quarter or in quarter 2, right? So end of this quarter. So live, like 24-hour live. So whenever you go live on Fanbase, that's coming at the end of the month. Next week, we have stage reactions in audio rooms. We have branded audio on web, and we have feed refactor. So that means we rebuilt the entire feed to house audio, carousels, Flicks videos, live, anything that you can think of that may come in the future, because we're actually trying to protect a lot of this IP that we're building. There's some functionality that I won't even put out because we filed 7 patents for some of this, but I'm trying to protect it because, again, none of these apps are coming out with original ideas. They put the app out there and then let black people go, oh, do retweet, add a DM. We need carousels. We need these features. And then they build it, and then they make the app better based off your input and your feedback. My thing is, okay, cool. I already know where the feedback comes from. It comes from us. So then let's give the people that bring those ideas to social media and make them cool an opportunity to own part of the company. So
this is actually my last question. So just picking up what you just said. So if we wanted, like right now, we're on Plex TV, Amazon News, Amazon Freevee, Amazon Prime Video, our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week Black Star Network streaming channel. So what you just described, would we be able to do that on Fanbase? Send our feed? I mean,
this year we're adding gaming, so you can play video games like Twitch. We're adding live 16:9 on Fanbase Plus, and we're building a streaming platform that is going to exist. So we're going to have our version of Netflix. We're going to have, and then we're going to start to get into original content. There's a play down the road, like I said, for a lot of functionality, a lot of features. But again, have to raise capital. We don't stress enough about these companies are out here raising. I've known apps that have raised $35 million at one time and gone out of business in 18 months. Boom. If I had $35 million rolling, do you know what I would do with that?
Oh, listen, the Recount launched the same year we did. They raised $32 million. They were bought for pennies on the dollar in January 2023 because they could never figure out a business plan. I got a business plan. We've been profitable since March 2020. The Messenger spent $60 million and they lasted 9 months.
Man, and they don't give us those opportunities.
And we ain't gonna talk about Quibi raising $1.5 billion and lasted 6 months.
Bro, I'm telling you, and the problem is that they always have these rules and regulations, especially for black founders. Like you see what's going on with Ari and Simone. You see the attack on DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. You see Issa Rae being upset that rap shit got canceled off HBO. You see us saying like, look, we get canceled. We bring all this culture, but then where's the fair opportunity for us to really present our culture and have our show succeed, our programs that we want to continue to see on television and love it. So if we don't build infrastructure, Fanbase is infrastructure. It's technology and infrastructure and media. If we're not doing that, we're just wasting our time begging to be accepted in places. And again, I get tagged in posts 5, 10, 15 times a day. You need to come to Fanbase, or I'm getting, I put my hand in my face like, why are y'all arguing to get your page back on TikTok? And I'm not saying leave, I'm saying leverage the audience that you built on Instagram, leverage the audience that you built on TikTok, and then migrate that audience over to Fanbase. I want to give a shout out to also Leah Janelle, an amazing choreographer and dancer. She's coming to Fanbase. She's actually launching her exclusive content this Friday on Fanbase. If you don't know who she is, she has Queens and Lettuce. She dances in high heels. She was on tour, Beyonce, the Renaissance tour. She got tour diary. She's got a lot of content coming. And so we're excited to have her join Fanbase. And there's some other really big surprises. I know some that you know about, Roland, that we can't talk about right now, but there's some other major players in the game that are on their way to Fanbase. And so that's why, again, it's time to really leverage this and pump this thing up.
Again, startengine.com/
Fanbase. Startengine.com/Fanbase. The minimum to invest is $399. But again, like $600, 28,000 people, the raise is closed. And when we reach that goal, that's it. There's no more chance to invest. When you reach that cap, there's no more chance to invest in the company. And I've done this now. This will be my 4th time, but doing a Reg A, and I'll explain the importance of this and how valuable your program is. When you go up to a Reg A, I can no longer do radio interviews, right? So I can't just hop on a radio program like I used to and be able to use that. So there's a lot of limitations. So the community effort in programs like this, I'll be on Blackout tonight on EYL with Rashad and Ian at 10 p.m. Tune in there. So these types of programs are the outlet that I have to really tell people about this raise and have people invest. And so I always appreciate you allowing me to come on here and talk about Fanbase and being an ally to what we do over here at this company.
Well, I believe in the concept. I use it. A lot of times when I go live with speeches, I'll go live on the audio. I might be streaming it or recording it, but I'll go live with the audio. And so, again, for the people out there, you said it, this is building infrastructure. Let's stop saying we don't have this and we don't have that. Everything that's on Clubhouse, you got. What's on Instagram, you got. And you had put it out when Elon bought Twitter, like, hey, if you give it to 1 million users, I'll create functionality that's like Twitter. People need to understand that's infrastructure.
Absolutely. We built, look, I tell you, Black culture is the vibranium. It is the most.
We drive everything.
I saw these Japanese, sorry, real quick. Hold on, Roland.
I got you.
I saw these Japanese kids today, like rapping like trap music in Japan, and it was dope. And I was like, it was on Lil Duval's page. He goes, would you imagine if hip hop made it this far? Can you imagine hip hop making it this far? And I'm like, do you understand? Like, Black culture is the smallest but most influential and valuable culture group on the planet Earth. Like, everything we do, if it's the dance, if it's the clothes, if it's the slang, if it's the song, whatever it is, we say there's trillions of dollars of value in that. When these rappers get on these songs and Cardi B says, I got a Coach bag on her new song, you don't think that people are out there going and buying Coach bags? Like, what we say goes. And so if we don't have equity, if we don't have ownership in the things that we talk about, then why are we talking about them? Why are we talking about Instagram so much and TikTok if we're not on the cap table? We don't have, if we're not on the cap table, and we have over about 14,000 investors in Fanbase. And so I tell everybody to join this round immediately. Like, don't wait, don't hesitate. Go to startengine.com/Fanbase and join this and have equity, and then be empowered to use something that you own and watch what happens. Watch what we do in 2024. It's going to change the world.
All right, Isaac Hayes, the third. I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, man.
Folks,
appreciate it.
I want y'all to go to startengine.com/Fanbase. All the information is there for you to check out. Let me thank Rebecca, Robert, Scott for being on today's panel. Thank you so very much. Folks, special note, we will not be live tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do, just like we did last year, 5 hours of our coverage, Black perspective on the State of the Union. We'll be live right here in the Black Star Network studios at 1630K on Black Lives Matter Plaza, just 2 blocks from the White House. And so we're going to have our experts. We're going to talk about the state of our union here as well. We'll have a live stream of President Biden. He'll be speaking at 9 p.m., but that's taking place tomorrow. We go live at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. is when we go live. And so please, we want y'all to tune in. Let's blow the numbers out of the water so folks are catching us. Again, you don't have to bother with MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS. We're going to have the Black perspective. We're going to have some of the best folks speaking on the issues right here on the Black Star Network. You don't want to miss that. That's tomorrow night, the State of Our Union. Our live coverage begins at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on the Black Star Network. Don't forget it, folks. Support us in what we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app. We're trying to get to 100,000 downloads. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Holla! Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?